Welcome, everyone. So great to see so many faces here for the school board meeting. We're gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order at 6:32. We appreciate you spending at least some of your evening with us. Are you having, you can't hear me? Oh, there's a lot of plotting, I think. There's fifth grade plotting happening. Now I have some sense of what it's like to be a fifth grade teacher. Is that better? We do often have microphones that help project our voices into the speakers in the room, but since we don't, I'll just ask school board members to make sure to keep, not to mumble. We'll just try that. Don't mumble tonight, please. All right. Well, our first order of business is public comment. So if we've got anybody in the room who wishes to make public comment, I don't know if we have anyone online. No? This is just a chance for members of the public to comment on anything that is on the agenda, or is that is just board business. But I don't think we've got anyone here for that tonight. Okay. So then we will move on to the consent agenda, which is a part of the agenda where we pass many things at once, things that are fairly pro forma for the board, minutes of previous meetings, things like that. But of course, any board member can pull something off of the consent agenda if they think it warrants further discussion. But let's start. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Thanks, Jill. Is there a second? Scott, a second. Thanks. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Moving right along here. Why don't we skip the second item where it's going to be a recognition of our fabulous student board members, but we don't have Miriam yet.
Miriam is coming. She's looking for parking.
Yeah, I had a feeling.
Yeah.
It's quite a busy lot out there. Well, we could come back to it. Yeah, let's go with, let's turn the floor over to our fifth graders who would like to share with us their hopes and dreams for the playground at the middle school. I cannot wait to hear this presentation.
So we've had our students write a persuasive writing to talk to you and give you guys some information about what they're hoping for our playground. So we've got representatives from each of our 4 classes that are going to come and present. Our first one will be Simone Fulch.
And if you could please state your name for the record.
My name is Simone Fulsha. Yeah. Do I sit down or?
If you'd like, you can also stand if you'd like.
Okay.
It's up to you.
Dear Miss Conrad and the MRPS School Board, if you take a good look at the MSMS playground, you'll see it has room for improvement. One of the most important learning spaces in a school is a playground. Where students learn to socialize and exercise without a device. Playgrounds are also vital to students' development. To me, the playground is a place to interact with other students outside the classroom. But our playground is only some small green equipment, a few swings, a small muddy soccer field, and an old cracked basketball court. Our activity options are limited, as is our ability to get energy out before re-entering the classroom. The fitness challenge is the best option for our playground for 5 reasons. First of all, the fitness challenge has a variety of pieces of equipment that will increase exercise for students. Included in it is a rope climb, a small climbing structure mostly based on monkey bars, a rock wall, a net to climb up and over, and a parkour balance set where you jump from platform to platform. Second, these structures will give kids lots of educational values, such as speed, dexterity, problem-solving skills, and core strength. Here's a list of the items and what strength skills kids will get from the fitness challenge. Rope climb gives you body strength, including back, biceps, shoulders, and forearms. Monkey bars based structure, the upper body strength, core strength, and grip strength. Rock wall, total body strength, including forearms, grip, upper body, core, and lower body. Climbing net, upper body and lower body strength. Platform jumper, leg strength. As you can see, it gives a variety of educational value and would be great for students to exercise. Also, kids can hang out and socialize. In the fitness challenge, there are 2 sides of each piece of equipment, which means that 2 students at a time can race each other and see who is the ultimate champion. It is scientifically proven that kids' development is better when they're around other kids. They also just get to mess around and have fun when they're able to exercise and be with each other. Fourth, it is under the budget, which means that if the school doesn't use all the money, the unused money usually goes into a possible new budget for MSMS. Lastly, it's a package. The fitness challenge includes 2 of the 4 suggested pieces of equipment. These are the reasons why the MSMS playground should have the fitness challenge. It's under the budget, it's a little something for everyone, it gives students a large variety of educational value, and most importantly, a good time. Famed cyclist Steve Tilford once said, "The world's a playground. You know that when you're a kid, but somewhere along the way, everyone forgets it." I think what he means is that eventually everyone grows up and eventually everyone neglects playgrounds. But it's actually a very important place for kids. So that is why I'm writing this letter, to allow you to consider updating the MSMS school playground. Sincerely, Simone Fulsha.
Thank you very much, Simone.
So next we have is Penelope Brewitt.
The giggling and shouting on a playground is commonplace at any elementary or pre-K school, but progressing to middle and high schools, these sounds of joy become rarer and rarer. Middle and high schoolers sometimes feel embarrassed by being caught having fun or feel that they are too cool too. The teachers, staff, and you guys are responsible for making sure that to preserve these sounds of childhood joy. At MSMS, it is our mission to do this, and this is why we need more and better playground equipment like the climbing structure. One reason we should get the climbing structure is because there are so many different things to do, and it is so large that you won't bump into people or have to wait in long lines. This structure, it's huge. It's everything in one, and it costs less than a bunch of those little things. It saves money and space. Look, this structure, it's an obstacle course, but it's also monkey bars, balance platforms, ladders, bars, climbing nets, and so much more. Another reason is that there are so many things to do, some of them are accessible to people with disabilities. Let's be honest, most playground structures aren't really that accessible to everyone, but on this structure, people with a problem in their legs can still hang on bars and improve their arm strength, and vice versa. MSMS is a caring community, and I know that people will support each other. My last reason is that most of these things build arm, core, and leg strength, as well as spatial awareness. The monkey bars improve arm strength, the ladders leg strength, and the climbing nets hand-eye coordination, and all of the above. Also, some kids work out for fun, while others would just relax, and this structure offers both. We have a budget of $38,000, but the climbing structure is $37,000. I think that we could use the remaining money to fix up the playground that we have now. The monkey bars are really hard for some people, and I think that we could replace them with more grabbable handles. As for the zip line, I think it should be taller because many students in middle school are growing and will soon be taller than the zip line. Also, kids are told that they cannot talk to their friends in the hallways, during transitions, or anywhere except lunch and recess. Our lunch and recess combined is only about 55 minutes, and that's not enough time to socialize with friends. We don't get to interact with other students very much during the school day, and so most kids at recess just spend their whole time talking. That's fun for some kids, but it's not very athletic, and therefore you'll be very wound up in class. Our playground at MSMS should have the climbing structure on it because it's so big that everyone can play on it and do different things at once. Some things on it are accessible, and almost all of the features on the climbing structure build strength and balance. Plus, it's all super fun. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Penelope
Penelope, thank
What's
you.
your last name, Penelope?
Brewitt.
Brewitt. For
Thank
the
you.
record. Thank you.
Yes,
you.
thank you, Penelope. Excellent.
All right. Next we have a presentation from Ms. McWicken's class. We have 2 different ones, and I could not agree. To share with you some of the pictures of what they're going to be referencing.
Oh, thank you.
Make sure you say your names nice and loud, okay?
I'm Phil Lowell. I am Dylan Simpson.
Do you think our playground is fun for kids? Take in consideration that half the students at recess don't get enough exercise because there aren't enough things that are fun. MSMS should buy the Fitness Challenge 714 S588 because it is fun, versatile, big, will increase student health, and is safe.
The Fitness Challenge 714 S588 is very fun since there are a lot of fun games played like the floor is lava, climbing to the top, who can do the monkey bars faster. You can also spin on one of the monkey bar wheels. The red Fitness Challenge 714 S588 is the best choice for MSMS because while you have fun, you actually gain a lot of exercise. There's 10 fun challenges to have fun on. That means you have multiple options to have fun, which can make kids happy.
The second reason that we should get Fitness Challenge 714 S588 is that it's very versatile and fun. One example of that is that 26 out of 31 fifth graders said that climbing structures are versatile. Another reason is that it has many different activities that you can use in many ways, including a large variety of monkey bars, which lots of people enjoy. Also, it has a rock wall, which most of the fifth graders who did a survey voted for.
Our next reason to get this play structure is that it can help build arm strength by having a lot of monkey bars, and this can help your core strength. Exercise is a key to a healthy life. Nobody wants to be unhealthy. So the spinning monkey bars can help you improve your semicircular in your ear, said the Cleveland Clinics. This is one of the many reasons why you should choose the Fitness Challenge 714 S588.
Our final reason we should buy Model 714 S588 is because it's very safe and it has steps to help you get down and up if you're not tall enough to do it yourself. This is a good safety feature because you have a less likely chance of getting hurt. Also, another safety feature about this structure is that there are many rounded edges on it, so you will not scrape yourself on sharp edges.
This is why you should get the Fitness Challenge 714 S588. One of the many reasons it's huge, so you can play a variety of games, such as an example, Floor is Lava. The other reason to get this play structure is that it's fun, safe, and it builds arm strength. If you get Fitness Challenge 714 S588, everybody will become more active and have more fun. This is why you should get Fitness Challenge 714 S588.
Our sources are CBC and HTTPS.
myclevelandclinic.org.
Okay, thank you. Paid ad.
Group from Ms. McWiggin's class. Go ahead. Please introduce yourselves, guys.
Oh, I see. We can share.
Okay, we have no more papers.
That's okay.
That's okay, we can share.
We can definitely share.
It's right there. Okay. You're starting. Okay.
Make sure you start with your name nice and loud.
Oh, yeah. I'm Julia Jageman. I'm Ari DeFries. I'm Lucille McNally.
Thank you for being here.
That's the sound of kids having fun. Do you want a playground with lots of play structures? Of course you do. Main Street Middle School should buy the structure 714 S685 because it increases physical activity, has lots of play structures, it has a slide, comes in different colors, and it's cheap enough that we can buy the 10 spin. One reason that you should consider the model 714 S685 is because it increases physical activity, because it is very accessible for those who might not have a lot of arm strength. Being physically active has lots of benefits for kids because it reduces obesity risk and improves overall physical and mental health. It also fosters social and emotional development and boosts academic performance. When kids can be more focused and involved, they could have a better opportunity to get a job of choice. Also, healthier children have longer lives if they're active enough. Some kids could grow up and barely be able to move their bodies, so it's important to have enough exercise.
Structure 714 S685 is a better choice for the MSMS playground because it has lots of play structures. A CBC article called "Are Playgrounds Too Safe? Why do kids need to monkey around?" states that having lots of play structures on a playground increases physical activities. In addition, a lot of these play structures are climbing structures. A survey of half the MSMS fifth shows that people think climbing structures are the most fun for kids.
The structure has different colors which are attractive to kids, so it will be used a lot. By default, it has 4 different colors. Studies have shown the relationship between color preferences, emotions, and academic performance in students.
If we buy structure 714 S685, then we could also afford a 10 spin, which is a really good thing. Why should you buy a 10 spin? You should buy the 10 spin because it is a cheap piece of equipment and doesn't take up a lot of space. Another reason is that the spinning is good for kids. Spinning improves the vestibular system, which helps with balance.
All in all, we should get structure model 714S685 because it comes with a slide, has lots of play structures, increases physical activity, has lots of colors, and is affordable enough for us to get the 10 spin and for more playground equipment. It's great, so go get the right playground structure for our school today. Our sources are Boyatz's and Verke's 1993, Imhoff 2004, Carp and Carp 2001,
Penn State Extension Better Kid Care,
CBC article titled, Are Playgrounds Too Safe? Why Do Kids Need to Monkey Around?
Playworld.com blog most popular playground equipment ranked.
Thank you very much.
By the way, the 10 spin is on the back of the paper.
All right, and last but not least, we have a joint presentation from some of our students from Mrs. Parker's class today. Come on. Marla, Sarah, and Phoebe.
Don't forget to state your name for the record, please.
All right, so imagine that you were eating lunch and the smell.
Oh wait, hold on, Marla. Can you guys state your names first and last name?
Oh, sure. I'm Marla Corbett.
I'm Sarah Duggan.
I'm Phoebe Barnard.
Thank you for being here.
All right, sorry. All right, imagine that you were eating pizza and the smell of your lunch was in the air. But suddenly, it was time to go play outside and have recess, but you were stuck watching everyone run out the door as it closes. That is what other kids would have to go through. If you were someone with a disability that makes it hard for you to go outside and play with your friends, what would you do during recess? Would your friends wait for you? Would your friends even sit with you? Would your friends even talk to you? Or would they go and be active like most kids would? Main Street Middle School new playground should be accessible to all of our students so that all kids can be included and so that they have more options during recess. We have created an essay that talks about 3 reasons why our school should be accessible. Number 1, so that all students can have fun during recess. Number 2 is so that the structures will be useful and make it more worth it. And finally, that it will improve its social skills.
The first reason that you should purchase accessible equipment for the MSMS playground is that recess is good for kids, so all kids should get that enrichment. Recess provides social and emotional learning, and some disabled people don't get along well later in life because they never got that as a kid. Recess improves focus, but if you had to sit around doing nothing during recess, then that would probably decrease your focus level. And also, studies show that 8 out of 10 kids would rather play on the playground and do something active than sitting around with friends. So if someone had a wheelchair and couldn't go on structures and play and be active, then they probably wouldn't have much to do. And enough kids have disabilities that they should be able to experience this.
Our second reason that Main Street Middle School should get accessible playground equipment is that a large amount of kids will use the equipment so it becomes more useful and worth it. There are over 1,300 accessible playgrounds, but this is not enough to serve the over 70 million Americans. There's 1 billion plus people with disabilities, nearly 15% of the world's population in the world with disabilities. Scientists are working on studies that have shown that more kids use accessible playgrounds quite a bit more than non-accessible playgrounds, which makes total sense of how many kids in the world have a disability. If I were to tell you my opinion about this, I would say that it makes a lot of sense to put an investment into accessible features for our playground. I mean, just think of the kids that would get a better childhood experience. And plus, a bigger amount of kids would come to our middle school because of how inclusive it is. Did you know that 75% of adults want their children to go to an inclusive school, whether they want a child with a disability, whether they have a child with a disability or not?
Third, if all playgrounds were universally designed and rich in sensory spaces, then people with mental disabilities can make more relationships, which teaches them about empathy, conflict and resolution. If MSMS keeps separating kids with disabilities, they won't learn empathy, and neither will the other kids. A place where there are some challenges but opportunities to succeed are essential to a playground. A goal we will have is to
have smaller things and then build up to the larger things. And in the end, everyone will be included and feel good.
In conclusion, playgrounds should be accessible to every kid because it's good for kids to have recess, and if we buy these features, it will be worth it, and it develops social skills to have accessible playgrounds.
You have an opportunity, so don't just brush past. Listen to our idea. Don't waste it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's what we have to present with you all today, is for something to think about. We know that you're going to be thinking about making a decision potentially this fall, and we'll come back hopefully with some more ideas as well. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Julie. Julie, is there any way for us to get these like emailed to us, or so we can have them to be able to like reference back? 100%. Okay, thanks. And thanks again to all of our fifth graders who showed up and
Very
shared
nice
those
job, fifth
persuasive
graders.
writing exercises. That was excellent.
Very nice.
Thank you. All right. We're going to take a minute or two now to appreciate and recognize our student board reps. Scott, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. So, Amani, you're headed to Scripps across the country. Miriam, you're headed to early college at UVM, so you're not leaving entirely, but you're both stepping off the board. I think we just wanted to take a moment to recognize your contributions. Matt McLean wanted to be here, but right now is the award ceremony over at CVCC. He emailed something earlier, and I think I'm going to read that one little quote because it was meaningful. So Matt shared in Bill Damon's book, Path to Purpose, how young people find their calling in life. He rightly contends that schools should prioritize civic education, not just in terms of facts about democracy, but also by fostering democratic ideals, understanding power, and encouraging active engagement. And he goes on to say, this is Matt, not the author, Amani and Miriam have leaned into their civic roles during some historic and complex community issues and decisions. And I just want to say it has been a delight to work with you two both. To have you step into your roles as representatives of the students, but also as the wider community. It's been really nice to have.
Does it make you want to go back to fourth grade?
No.
To have you.
They're yours, Julie.
Not only sharing your perspectives, but also shining a mirror back onto ours. Sometimes it's helpful to have the adults in the room be the youngest of the adults in the room, reminding the rest of us how to keep things into perspective. So I just want to say thank you and good luck with the next stage of your respective lives.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you both so much. I don't have much to add to what Scott just said and what Matt shared with us. Mostly, I just hope you've gotten out of this as much as we have benefited from having the two of you here. And I just wanted to say how much I personally have appreciated the contributions that you've made, the disagreements that we've had, and the way that you have helped push decisions forward with your voice. So thank you so much.
So I've loved getting to know both of you in a different way, and we have a little gift for both of you here. One, make sure I give you the right one here. This is Amani's. One is a little something something for you to go to Bear Pond and buy a really crappy fiction book before you go to college. Okay, this summer. Okay. And the other is something that Matt thinks of for a lot of graduating seniors. They're from students. They're from Peter Evans, who was a former Roxbury principal and a potter, as well as beer brewer in Northfield and Roxbury. And he makes something special for people going through Flex Pathways, and he thought this was a good time to give one out. So you also have that in your bag. Thank you for your contributions.
Thank you both very, very much. It's too bad we didn't have a room full of fifth graders to hear all about that. That you were definitely set.
We could have recruited.
I know.
Exactly, we could have recruited. And they could have seen shining role model leadership examples.
That's right.
I'll stop by during my winter break. There's a board meeting.
Oh, great.
Please
You're
don't.
always
Please
welcome.
enjoy your winter break.
We would love to see you. That's what Libby meant to say. Okay. So now let's call up our admin team for our end of the year data presentation.
Tough act to follow.
Seriously, guys.
Oh, I'm first.
Yeah, you're first.
So we have in here some information, some general demographic information that was updated a little bit ago. We did receive a date from the Agency of Education stating that we would receive initial results on the 24-25 VT cap by July 23rd. They'll still be embargoed, but that's the date that we were given. So I don't have anything new to report on that other than we received a date for the first time in several years. So we'll hope for that. And then we have our Renaissance Star results. A couple of things to note. At the elementary school, while we did see spring to spring results go down, part of the context of that is that we are having more students take the literacy assessment versus the early literacy assessment, which is a great measurement. That's a fantastic thing that we saw there. And then in all the schools, the middle school and the high school, we saw an increase from spring to spring in both math and literacy. Overall, we're seeing a lot of connection to the work that we're going to be doing this coming school year, focusing on mathematics alignment through K through 12. We're really excited about that. We're kicking it off next week with 2 full-day sessions for elementary and middle school teachers. We're really excited about that. And this spring has really given us a chance. We had one of our vendors is bowing out, VCAT, where we stored a lot of our data. And what's great is it's given us a fresh chance to look at how we're looking at our data, our diagnostic data, and our information. Nick and I spent some time with some folks just yesterday, and it was really great. So we're really excited about where we're going next year, some of the new things that we're doing, and our data is really reflecting that we're focusing in on the right areas.
Good?
I'm good.
Okay. Any questions for Mike?
Thank you, Casey.
You're welcome. All right, I can jump into my part. So the information that I provided for you, I started out looking at our multilingual learner population and just looking at how that population is spread across our schools. We do have a big shift coming next year, so the high school will have a higher amount than the middle school next year. And I included, for the first time, and we'll certainly continue to do this more, looking at the access assessment data. So students that are identified as multilingual learners have an annual assessment that they have to take that looks at their listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills of the English language. And so what we've started doing is looking at what those composite scores look like from year to year to make sure that they're increasing. And so you can see that 62% of our students had an increase in their scores. About 10% stayed the same. There was 22% this first time they took the test. And then there is a smaller population that those scores did decrease. And that's the overall score. It doesn't mean, and in most of those situations, one of those areas went up, but something else didn't. And so we're trying to look at ways to continue to increase the data that we're looking at around that population of students. And then looking at special education numbers, I think the child count number is a good one to look at, and we continue to rise in our number of students that we have that we are providing services through IEPs for. One of the things to note on this line graph is that the 2022 year is when the special ed regulations changed, and so you see that significant jump in students with IEPs after that time. So something to keep in mind. We did do a pretty significant amount of initial special education evaluations this year. So in our K-12 population, we had 30 students that we evaluated. About a quarter of those were not found eligible. And with our preschool students, we had a smaller amount of special education evals that we did. But again, almost half of the ones that we evaluated were not eligible. So just providing those numbers. Looking at least restrictive environment, as you can see, we continue to serve most of our population within the gen ed setting for most of their day, which is great. That's where we want students. But that's a breakout to just show where students are getting services and where they're accessing their education. Disability categories, specific learning disability is our highest category percentage-wise, followed pretty closely by other health impairment, which is what ADHD and anxiety fall under. So that's continues to be an area where we have a significant number of students receiving IEPs services around. And then just of note, because there's always a lot of conversation about behaviors and this idea that not to say we don't have students that have challenging behaviors in schools, but our students that qualify under emotional disturbance is only about 12.5% of the students with IEPs, and that same amount is for students with autism spectrum disorder. So again, the majority of our students are specific learning disability or other health impairment. And then the last graph I have here is just distribution by grade band. And again, next year, the shifts are really going to the middle school and the high school, which I think is good news, is that we're finding less students in need of special education services at our elementary school, which hopefully means that our intervention systems are working well and that we're able to provide what students need without needing to have an IEP. So those are my charts. I did a last minute, hey, send me highlights. And so you have some individual highlights here. When I looked at what we did last year, I was like, oh, I got to get those. So there's some stories there or some shares there from a few different folks. And then just two things to put on people's radar is we spent this year working on a LAU plan, which is a required plan for working with our multilingual learners. The last time there was one updated in this district was 2008. So we updated that. Mike helped a lot with that, but we definitely made sure we got input from across the different schools and providers. So we're finalizing that now, and that will be shared starting this summer. And then we also will be changing our special education delivery model next year. So we will have the ability for most of our special educators to actually focus on instruction instead of trying to spread themselves between instruction and paperwork and all the different parts of special education. So we will have a case manager that will do the paperwork for K to 6 and another one that does the paperwork and the case management for 7 to 12. And then they will work with all of the special educators in the schools to provide the instruction and to collaborate with general education teachers. So we did a task force this year to study different models. So this was something that was not decided by me alone. It was something that the special educators looked at and talked about. And there was some nervousness about the change. And then in the last 2 months, I've heard, oh, I can't wait till I'm not writing an IEP again. Or, oh, here's the last IEP I have to write. So I think people are already starting to be excited about just being able to focus their attention and really in instruction or in case management and not try to straddle both of those worlds. So that's what I have. Anyone have questions?
Great. So is it going to be the two of you leave the table and then Jess and Nick come up? So before you leave the table, let's see, are there questions on academics and special education for Peggy Sue and Mike? Jake, yeah, go for it.
What is the policy change in 2022 or 2023?
Oh, so the special education regulations changed, and so a couple of significant changes were the way that we found specific learning disability eligibility. So there was a change in how that happens. There was a change in the adverse effect rules, which is like the second part of an eligibility criteria process. So that previously had been basic skill area at the lowest 15th percentile rank, and you had to have at least 3 different ways you showed it. It was much more formulated than it is now. Now it's kind of broader. And then the other significant change, which I think is likely where our increase really has shown, is functional skills was added as a basic skill area. So that's executive functioning, social skills, social emotional regulation, all of those things. So prior to that, it was only looking at academic skills. And so that functional piece has added, I think there were a number of students that were likely being served on Section 504 plans because academically they were achieving well, but it was really the functional impact that was challenging for them in school. And so that change, I think, brought about a pretty significant increase in students being eligible. Yeah.
I had a couple. I noticed that the CIP goals are referenced in a couple of places in the plan. This is more of a request for the data reports for next year. If you could include the CIP goals in the data report, so we just have them all in one place, and we can then be looking at where we're at versus where we want to go. And then I'm curious what you can tell us about any differences in the like math or literacy proficiency across different demographics, because we have the whole school picture in the report, but if there's any sort of demographic breakdown that you can share.
I don't have that information for tonight, but
Okay.
we're going to be looking at that for sure. We had talked about updating the opportunity gap information, disproportionality information based on our data for next year. So, yeah, I'm not prepared to speak about it tonight, though.
Okay, but maybe
We have
next year.
disproportionality data on VCAP scores, correct?
Yes, but we had opportunity gap that we broke down with more local assessment information, but we didn't. This just finished. I think they finished testing students 2 days ago, so we didn't have a chance to really dig deeper than that.
Okay.
That's one of the challenges with you want to get the assessments pushed as far back to the end of the year as possible, but then our
Spring
board
is
meeting.
tough.
Yeah.
Okay, but maybe in the fall we could see.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be great. Those are my only questions for the two of you.
I just have a quick question, Peggy. So you mentioned the shift in the model for delivery, and so the case managers are going to be focusing on that piece, and those are virtual, right? So does that mean that we have we can take the folks that are here, and they're going to be in the classroom, and then we could have folks potentially not even in this community, we could be recruiting from a wider area so that we don't have openings?
Yeah, so part of, Scott. Yes, that's part of the reason that we looked at this, actually. So out of my 3 years here, 2 of the years we've been a special educator short at the middle school. And so they're across the country. There's not a lot of people saying special ed is where I want to go work. And so a couple things are with this. One is, yes, that way we can recruit. We actually do have the 2 people we hired are going to be in Vermont, which is great, and I'm really excited for them. And so they will possibly be coming in some for meetings and that kind of stuff. But the other part, and kind of thinking about this long term, is that with the regulation changes that happened with all the other changes, part of it is that that we don't have to have special educators naturally only doing specially designed instruction. So we can have interventionists providing that too. So if we get to a place where we can't hire as many special educators, having some that can do that case management piece and understand the accessibility piece, and then some that can just deliver reading services, math services, and have that specialty, opens us up to also have more opportunities for who we can hire looking ahead. So, yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thank you both.
You're welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Down here. Ross, you look like you're up first.
Sure, I just want to put a plug in for middle school playground, John Deere 1025R. So,
We need to hear and have you email us your persuasive writing
Okay.
exercise
All right.
then, as well, Mr. Connor?
you got it.
Yeah.
Sources cited?
JohnDeere.com. I'll be very brief with chronic absenteeism. You all have heard kind of my pitch on chronic absenteeism, what it is. This past year, we're sitting at 20% of students are chronically absent. So 1 out of 5 students in our district is missing 10% or more of their school days. The graph kind of demonstrates the past 3 years, kind of what we've seen, how things have been growing. The one thing I would highlight is that we've seen it's somewhat of a stagnation this year. We're not seeing the same gains that we've seen in previous years. Early data showing that's a trend across the state and across the country. So I highlight that just to also lift up what we're going to be shifting into next year and how we're going to try to bring some changes to how we approach chronic absenteeism, which is really having more of a shared responsibility model in our buildings. The big shift here is really how we build out attendance teams in our schools so that when a student starts to miss school in September, October, November, it's not always me as a community liaison making that first call, that first outreach. Oftentimes it will be somebody in the school that will be able to speak more to the fact of like, hey, Billy wasn't here and we really missed them because we just did this project in this class and their friend said this thing about missing them. Really wanting to build that out more. We think kind of the plateau that we've hit is we've changed a lot of our systems and how we address absenteeism overall. We've built a lot of family engagement, a lot of family connections. So how are we going to move forward past this plateau that we're at right now? And that's kind of shifting it from really one person in the district responding to a significant absenteeism to how do our teams respond holistically inside of our schools to students that are missing school. So that's kind of the highlight here and the headline here is we're sitting at 20%. Last year we were at 19%. It's roughly the same. It's still 200 plus students that are chronically absent. You can see kind of the breakdown in the charts of who's missing more school. So young people who may qualify for free and reduced lunch, they're sitting at 26% chronic absenteeism. Young people that are in an IEP, 28% chronic absenteeism. So that's kind of how things are playing out this year. We've seen gains really in all of our student categories as far as chronic absenteeism goes. The last piece here that I kind of pulled out too is by gender identity. This is something I'm still unpacking. The trend in chronic absenteeism across the country when you look at gender identity, you actually don't see big differences. Certainly in the federal data, which tends to be presented as binary, those two categories actually are pretty much always the same. But here in our district, we're seeing much higher chronic absenteeism rates for folks that identify as young women. And that's a piece that we need to continue to unpack of what's kind of happening here. I think there's maybe some connections in the belonging data as well. But I do think that's a unique piece that we haven't seen before and is not something that follows like a trend that I would expect to see with chronic absence data. So again, this year, 20%, we are kind of hitting a spot where we're leveling out a little bit after seeing multiple years of gains. The strategy as we move into next year is how we build the capacity within our school buildings to address this at that tier 1 and 2 level, to have more of that. Like, I think we all know when we receive a call from a teacher or somebody in the school, it's really different than getting a call from somebody at the district level, because those teachers and those special educators and the social worker and the nurse know our kids so much more in depth and seeing them every day. So really excited for where that's going to lead next year, and in conversations with those folks across all our buildings, they were very excited to be able to jump in a little bit more in this space. So that's kind of the trend of what we've seen this year and where we're going next year.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a question.
You want to ask?
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a sense of what the main reasons are that kids are chronically absent?
Yeah, we've done some root cause analysis this year, and the leading this year, as many years, is health. health-related absences. So for us to unpack what are the causes behind the absences, we're looking at how we code absences and then working with our attendance teams to say, this is our list of students, let's talk a little bit about what we know and what they've named as their barriers. Health is the number one barrier. Main Street in particular this year, I was like pneumonia after flu, after pneumonia, after flu, like it was a rough go of it. And so one of the things that we're actually doing is, so our school nurses will be a part of every attendance team next year. I've always worked closely with them, but they haven't been a part of our attendance team. In addition to that, we are trying to build out our network of how we work with local pediatricians. There's a statewide movement coming out of UVM that is actually coaching pediatricians and doctors' offices as part of a well-child visit, that the doctor's actually asking how many days of school did you miss in the last 30 days.
Oh, interesting.
So Dr. Heidi Schumacher, who's in UVM, she's amazing. She pushes this, she says, attendance is a vital sign is her language, and I love that. We know that our doctor's offices are doing the same things oftentimes that we're doing. They're talking about housing resources, they're talking about food insecurity, and then that student or family comes to our school, and we're talking about housing resources, and we're talking about food insecurity. So how we can have better collaboration with our local pediatricians is a big goal for us next year. Our nurses, Caitlin, Liz, Megan, they're incredible and doing really amazing work. And so as I've talked to them as the year goes on about how we can build this out more, they're like ahead of the game. They're like, yep, this is what our plan is, this is what we want to do more of. So as far as primary reasons for missing, the primary is health. And then the strategies to that, we can do a lot more, like as far as our intentionality approaching that. Yeah.
I will say too, just to add on that Nick won't toot his horn. We've had so many successes this year, particularly at the high school. I see that more with thinking about barriers and taking down those barriers for kids. You know, we have one staff member who drives, 5 kids to school
Yeah,
each
she's
day?
amazing. Leslie Sabo is awesome.
Leslie goes and gets the kids, and we didn't see those kids very often
No.
prior to this year. They are here every single day this year.
I run into them at Capitol Grounds.
Yeah, she drives them with coffee, she
It's-
does what she needs to do.
But that's the thing, right? Like you listen to young people. High school, we don't have buses. We know that there are some young people in families that may have higher rates of absenteeism and also don't have transportation. And as we've followed the data and followed our students, there are students that may bubble up, and Leslie's able to say, let me get you, I got you, don't worry about it. By the way, I'm gonna take you to Capitol Grounds on Thursday. So there's so many great things like that happening that are really strong.
A lot of really good success. And Nick was just standing next to me in the fourth grade ceremony. He's like, I see a lot of families here. I'm really happy to see.
Yeah.
You know, like just inviting them
Totally.
in, which is cool.
Yeah.
Can you just remind me what pre-pandemic normal was?
Yeah, so I wish I could tell you for our school district, our data prior to COVID and looking at it from a lens of chronic absenteeism is pretty messy, so I couldn't give you a concrete example. I'm pretty confident it was likely around 15%. The nationwide trend is pre-COVID to post-COVID, numbers doubled. So our numbers several years ago were like 32%, which is an indicator to me we were likely around 15%, and I think that that's a pretty realistic snapshot. State of Vermont AOE has published some things that I know, like just the data back at that point of what they have published for chronic absenteeism does not speak to our numbers at all. So while there is information on AOE's website, it's not information that reflects the true nature of what was happening. So pre-pandemic, I would guess it was around 15. And there's a national, I mean, to your point, there's a national campaign. It's a 50% chronic absenteeism campaign that states have signed on to, and the 50% is in the spirit of getting back to pre-pandemic numbers. Most states have goals of like 2029 to get back to that pre-pandemic level. Yeah.
Yeah, just really quickly, Nick, I just want to thank you. The focus that you and others in the district have been putting on chronic absenteeism is laudable. I yesterday was at a conference at UVM. Bernice Garnett and Heidi Schumacher co-presented just about the very topic you mentioned, and so the fact that you mentioned it today, I'm just like grateful that you and others in the district are doing some of the work that healthcare providers and educational professionals are realizing is important around attendance as a health indicator. So, thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Heidi's amazing.
And Bernice is also amazing.
They both, yeah. And Bernice won an award yesterday at
That
the
makes
conference.
sense.
So
She was a powerhouse.
yeah, I was grateful to be able to join them for lunch. So.
I'm curious to know if because there are some of our students in the the demographic groups. I appreciate that you shared those different graphs to show us a comparison of, say, our BIPOC students or our students with IEPs. The ones who are more of them are chronically absent than our general population. Is there, as you shift these strategies, is there anything that you're doing? It's actually not the case for our BIPOC students, but for like you were saying, our female identifying students and our students with IEPs, for example.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you're doing as you shift strategies to specifically support these areas, these demographic areas?
Yeah, I mean, I think candidly, health is something that spans across so many of our student populations that are outlined here, that is a primary focus. So while we may see overrepresentation, for example, with students that have an IEP, the calls predominantly that we're still getting and what we're understanding as the reasons for absences come back to health. So if we're looking at something like, our overrepresented categories are IEP, free and reduced lunch, which is our economic indicator.
Yep.
So in that same vein, I still think about healthcare pretty interconnectedly in our population that maybe have an economic indicator as qualifying as free and reduced lunch. I would talk about access to healthcare. The ability to be able to get into a doctor's office, to be seen and not have extended absences is really different for a family that doesn't have transportation, a family where it's maybe parents are working multiple jobs or at night. So we do see higher rates of health-related absences across certain student groups as well. It's tough. I think at the core of everything is relationships. So I will say our schools have done such an amazing job in the focus on belonging and their focus on social emotional wellness. There's a model called the positive conditions for learning, and there's 4 things, but at the core of the 4 things is relationships. And I think that is honestly the core of why we've seen such reduction. And we still have lots to unpack, right? So by gender identity, for example, this is something that stood out to me this year that kind of caught me off guard as I was pulling the numbers together. We have a lot to unpack. For sure, but I don't know that I can speak to anything overly specific for certain groups.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
No, that's helpful, and that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Amani?
Nick, I would like to follow up about that because, everything you're saying about health and whether it's transportation or, I think, do you have data about why certain families with students who are absent a lot don't come to school when they're sick? I know not only could it be wait times at the ER or urgent care, do you think cost of you go to the hospital to get a test for flu, pneumonia, or flu, strep, and COVID, and you have to wait for 3 hours for them to take the test?
Yeah.
And then if something is positive, you have to wait even longer to get treated. Apparently you have to get treated at the ER for strep. I didn't know that.
I didn't either. One of the things that you're naming specifically that I've seen come up several times in the last is actually dental care. Dentists that take Medicare or Medicaid, they're few and far between. They're also local dentists are asking for upfront money before students get their service for emergency service. So we've literally gone out to deliver gift cards to family to be able to pay the upfront cost because of a toothache that's gone on for weeks, and Nurse Megan's you have to fix this. This is a serious health issue. Health insurance doesn't play the same way in dental care. So things like that are a huge barrier. The other thing I would say that I've seen families keep students home when maybe they could come to school based on, they don't have a fever, is I don't want to get a call halfway through the day and have to leave work. So instead, I'm just going to keep them home so I know that I've got it taken care of and I won't have to leave halfway through the day, which is real, So it's hard, but that's certainly a factor as well.
Because I feel like I've always not known, like, when I'm sick, I don't, like, if I can get out of bed, I think I can go to school. But is that worse because you could get other people sick? Like,
It's
how...
not worse. It's great.
Until there's pneumonia, then SMS.
We are pushing with our nursing crew a how sick is too sick document.
Okay.
And
That's
several
great.
schools have pushed this. We've had the National School Nurses Association has put together a flyer. I've put it in front of our nurses over the past 2 years, and I think fairly enough, they're like, this language is like, what kind of rash are we talking about?
Oh, God.
And so there's been a little bit, but next year we hope to have like a pretty strong campaign on how sick is too sick as far as what it means to come to school. The other thing I would encourage any families to be doing, if you have questions, is call the school and talk to the nurse. Like, our nurses are really good about, tell me when was the last time this happened, that happened, bring them in. Or, it makes sense to keep them home. But like, we have nurses in all of our schools who are amazing, so being able to reach out to them and say, hey, this is what's going on, what do you think? They'll tell you.
Okay, so cold-wise, like, not COVID, not strep.
Look,
like,
if you have the sniffles and you don't have a fever and
Come
other
here.
graphic things that I won't talk about, you can be in school.
Okay.
It's my hot take.
No, I don't actually think it's a hot take. Personally, I go to work and I go to school when I have a cold, but it makes me uncomfortable because I know when other people do that, I'm uncomfortable that they're, like, not washing their hands every time they blow their nose. But at the same time, Nick,
Yep.
same time, I think that, like, many people have a cold for, like, a week or 5 to 10 days, and it's miserable, and some people get over it faster if they literally sleep as much as possible and, like, aren't going around the school and doing classes and athletics.
Yeah. All of these are great points. Nurse Liz here has some really strong opinions on this too. She's very great. You obviously need to care for yourselves. Everyone should care for themselves and make the decision you need to make. And if you want a form, this is how sick is too sick, it's going to tell you no fever in the last 24 hours if you haven't had this and that. Good to go. Chronic absenteeism impacts more than just the student. It slows down instruction. It's harder for our teachers to spend more time reteaching so many things. And across the country, the language of learning loss, which I think we're all a little bit tired of, part of the reality of that is the high rates of chronic absenteeism because instruction has had to slow down so much. You could talk to any teacher anywhere and they're going to be like, oh, that's a thing, that hits. So when you talk about that missing time, and to miss extended time really does have a ripple effect that impacts so much more. So it's always a judgment call, but having the information and having people to call is great.
So, sorry, one last push here. Your opinion, for example, if you are, you have a cold and you don't have to stay home because theoretically, like, you feel not great, but you don't have a fever and you could be at school, but you have, let's say, you're a junior or a senior and you have a lot of, like, online classes and less in-person classes, and all of your, like, MHS classes, you can, like, do the work through Google Classroom from your couch. Is that reasonable, or does that still?
You have to talk to Jason about that. I'm gonna
Jason
plead the
would
fifth.
love to have that conversation. I'm positive.
And Liz.
Yep.
It's a good.
Yeah. Fair
pivot.
questions. Fair questions. I love the granularity you're thinking though, because that will move the numbers.
It will. That's where,
That's
yeah,
true.
that's where the change happens. Any other questions for Nick before we give Jess the floor?
I do. Do you see, or are you able to, or is this document that you're talking about gonna try to sort of parse out the overlap between mental health and physical health? Because anxiety can cause, there are a lot of ways in which those things go together. And when you're feeling nervous, when you're feeling anxious about whatever, your stomach could get upset. You could
100%.
become sick to your stomach, and then you're getting, you're getting feedback that you shouldn't be in for 24 hours, and that's, I don't know. That's,
Yeah, so a couple of things. One is a social worker will be on every attendance team next year as well. Those somatic kind of symptoms that you feel when you have anxiety. We also have an anxiety one-pager that we're going to be putting out that talks about, and this is hard, when you're facing anxiety and you do kind of move into a space of not wanting to feel discomfort, that can actually perpetuate and make that worse. We know that young people who walk through our doors every single day in school, just walking through the door, even if it's like an hour, whatever, I always tell families, like, walk through that door, because when you develop the habit of, this is hard and I'm going to just stay home, that rolls downhill so fast. And it's not for me to say how hard is too hard to a family, because I don't know and I won't ever know. When we're talking about anxiety and our social workers, I'm using their language because they're the professionals. It really is about, like, how do we experience discomfort and build the skills around feeling discomfort to move through our lives in a way that gets us through. When we take that approach of, like, any discomfort, I'm going to pull in, it can build that anxiety and does not actually help it in the long run. Again, I'm not anyone to tell anyone how hard is too hard, and that's like what the research would tell us.
Thank you.
Seems like a pretty good segue to Jess.
Social emotional learning.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so I have a lot of charts for you all, if you may have seen. To start us off, our social emotional learning survey. This is our second year giving this survey. We've done it 3 times a year. Next year, we're going to move to twice a year. But I added the spring from last year and the spring from this year, so you have a year-to-year comparison. Some of the things that really stood out to me, self-management and emotional regulation, which we talk about as self-awareness and identity here at MRPS. We've seen some growth across the district, which is pretty exciting, specifically because our social emotional learning coaches have worked with teacher teams across UES and MSMS, and basically every single one of those grade level teacher teams have picked one of those 2 categories, right? So I think it's really speaking to the social emotional coaches and those teacher teams, is really targeting those specific social emotional skills and thinking about what are the strategies that we're going to push into the classroom, what are the ways that we're directly teaching these things to students, and how are we encouraging students to regularly reflect on those things, right? So for example, for self-management for UES, it went up 5 points. So I actually went into Libby's office as I was doing some of this analysis, because I was like, oh, Libby, it's working. So exciting to see the work that our grade level classroom teachers are doing, really focusing and being really targeted with a particular SEL skill and seeing progress on a pretty big universal measure is really, really exciting. One of the things that we think we really need to focus on moving forward is social awareness. I think that that's something that has been persistently hard to move forward, and I'm really curious about how having device-free schools next year will hopefully see an increase. I think that that has the potential to make a pretty big difference for students. So I'm really excited we're going device-free and have been advocating for that for a while. So I'm really excited about that, and I'm hopeful that that will help us move forward with social awareness in ways that have been a little persistently low. The next thing is the particular question of when you are at school, how much do you feel like you belong? It's broken down by demographics, right? So our overall belonging favorable rating is in this, and then the belonging overall rating is created by 4 different questions. And so I pulled out the specific question of when you're at school, how much do you feel like you belong? Because that's the most direct way to talk to students about this, right? It directly gets at that. And so overall, we've seen some growth. We have seen, UES is exactly the same, and then we've seen some growth across MSMS and MHS. While I unfortunately couldn't include all of the numbers for you because of some small N sizes, we have made progress with Black learners, multilingual learners, and non-binary students, and seeing their feelings of belonging increase when compared this year to last year. As Nick was sort of referring to, we're also seeing a persistent gender identity divide around how students experience belonging. Young women are a lot less likely to report higher senses of belonging than young men are in our district. And I think that reflects a little bit and is related to chronic absenteeism. So that's something that Nick and I have started to think about and talk through, because that is at every school across our district, seeing that gender divide or gender identity divide. And that's been the case a year ago and is also the case for this as well. I also had Nick, it's not included in here, but I had Nick pull some data around Roxbury and how Roxbury students who live in Roxbury are experiencing belonging versus our Montpelier students. In the fall, it was 46% of Roxbury students who live in Roxbury reported a higher rate of belonging, and in the spring is 59%. So we have a 13% increase for students who live in Roxbury and how they're reporting feelings of belonging over the course of this year. So the opportunity gap between students who live in Roxbury and students who live in Montpelier actually went from 24% down to 7% from this fall to this spring. So that's something that I really wanted to highlight and elevate. I think that that's just a reflection of how caring and thoughtful and inclusive our teachers are and welcoming students.
Would you mind repeating the opportunity gap percentages?
Yeah, this fall it was 24%, and then this spring it was 7%.
Thank you.
And that's across the district, all Roxbury residents?
All
Or
schools?
students?
All schools, yeah.
Okay.
So it's 3rd grade to 12th grade, because those are the students who take the
Yep.
belonging survey. So yes, and Nick is working on getting Panorama to include town of residence, so that'll be really easy to track over time. So I'm excited, I'm looking forward to that. But that was some huge growth that I definitely want to highlight. Our behavior incidents are going down, as well as our HHB and suspension rates. I think, some exciting stuff that we have in the work, if you remember in the fall, specifically at UES, we had a little bit of a bump of physical aggression and behaviors. That's pretty typical of that time of year. And so one of our SEL Equity Tier 1 teams at UES is working on circle scripts and really specific lessons to really target how do we treat each other in the fall, how are we gonna treat each other in this community, what norms are we gonna create, and I'm hopeful that that will help make that bubble in the fall that we see persistently every year a little less of a bubble. So that is really exciting and really exciting to see teachers continue to embrace restorative practices in circle as part of their work. And then as far as hazing, harassment, and bullying investigations, I think we have strengthened some of our restorative responses to those and have some structured ways for how we educate students after those incidents happen and how we rebuild relationships and repair those. And based on the data, we're seeing less and less students repeating the same type of behavior over time, right? So when I started, a lot of our HHBs were students who would repeatedly have HHB violations, and that was the bulk of our number. Now we're seeing it's mostly students who engage in one, work through our process, and then we're not seeing them pop up again on the radar, which for me was a really strong sign that the way that we're approaching these incidents is making a difference and working for students. And then I just want to shout out the MSMS, Social Emotional Learning crew, because the SDL crew has seen 61.3% of students, the social emotional learning folks, and those are targeted interventions that have like panorama plans tracked, so that's not even counting the kids that they just see in the hallway and support and respond to when they're having a hard time or need some restorative repair happening after student conflict. And so while all of our SEL professionals work really, really hard, I think I was just, that really stood out to me at the middle school. And I think part of that is the way that the SST cycle works there. Our guidance counselors specifically work through groups of students and have short cycles. And so they're able to filter through more students. And that's a model that we're looking at really replicating at UES next year to see how we can have more students access social emotional learning interventions when they need them.
So a social emotional,
Go for it.
a social emotional intervention is not necessarily an intervention to correct a misbehavior? Because when I read that, I saw that, that looked concerning. Like, are we saying that 61.3% of students required an intervention? But you're saying it's actually more there's proactive.
Yeah, so I think that is reflective of the fact that the counselors and our social worker there are cycling through a lot of students proactively. So they have a system where they actually go through some of our SEL and belonging data, and then they meet once a week in order to look at the data, look at folks who have been referred to them, and folks that they're worried about, and then they cycle through kids based on things that are coming up before it gets to a point where they need like a tier 3 intervention. So yeah, does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anecdotally, I heard at the beginning of the school year, each of the counselors and the social worker did a 1-minute meeting with each 5th grader. Is that, would that be included in?
That is not included.
That's in addition to?
Suzanne.
Every student. I thought that was every 5th grader. Every student.
And Suzanne and Sam at UES also did
They
the
do
same
that.
thing. They actually got the idea from Suzanne and Sam.
It sounds exhausting, but also very cool.
Yeah. I think it's just a really nice touch point.
Yeah.
And they love it. I mean, it's so exciting to see them get to know kids and talk about it. And, yeah, it's just really exciting to hear them talk about their work.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Jill, thank you for that opportunity to clarify. That would be concerning.
Julie and Jess, let's make sure the team comes next year to talk to the board about what those cycles might look like.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, it's anything from like working on some of the regulation strategies and things like that, or it could be working on helping students who we notice have kind of a negative thinking, like impulsive negative thinking, like is their first thing of like learning how to kind of like reframe their thinking in situations, to other ways of like, building trust and creating friendships. So it's really depending on what those kids need at those moments. We can definitely do that.
Yeah.
And whenever we have the SEL and belonging survey, they're like, Jess, can we get that yet? Jess, can we get that yet? Which is exciting. I actually had more people this spring asking me for the data and when they could get their hands on it, which is a really exciting sign, because it means that they're using it in ways that we haven't in the past.
I also wanted to highlight and celebrate one of the things that I saw in there, which is mostly we're seeing positive growth in feelings of belonging among our students who receive special ed services.
Yes.
Which was really cool to see.
Yeah, that is a highlight. Interesting, like 504 has been really up and down. I've been tracking that over time too, and sometimes it's like, yeah, we have a lot of progress, and then sometimes it seems to swing the other way. So that's something that I've been thinking a lot about too. But yes,
Yeah.
students who are accessing special ed, we have seen some growth.
The gender disparity in belonging data that you mentioned, as low as 50% of the female students not feeling, or as high as 50% not feeling as though they belong. Is that consistent with what data are collected across the country, or like I'm wondering where MRPS might stand in relation to other districts?
Yeah, I actually don't know that. That would be really helpful. Panorama provides like the overall percent favorable in comparison to the country, as I include it here, but don't offer a breakdown of demographics. Which we gotta get on that, Nick. That would be really helpful.
Thanks, Jess. And this is just a total aside, the reported behavior incidents, I think a graph of those data rather than the table, would be able to show the trends, if there were trends. And I'm happy to, sketch out what I think is.
You can talk to Nick about it. He's gonna be our data person next year.
All right,
so
perfect.
It's gonna look better next year.
Thank you for
Just putting the pressure on you. Sorry, Riley.
Thank you for breaking out the Roxbury numbers.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
I
that
was
was-
really, really excited. I was really excited to see that growth.
Yeah.
So thank you for asking about it. I think you've asked about it a few times and we finally did it, so.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. And, as we close out the year, I just want to celebrate how much you all work together as a team. And it's clear that the academics are succeeding because the social emotional learning and vice versa. And it's just really building a really strong system for our students. So I just wanted to appreciate that. Thank you. So next up is kicking it over to our operations committee for the possibility of putting money from our reserve fund, fund balance into the capital fund. So I'll kick it over to Tim.
So first I want to talk about the model 714S5.
Are the Duggins trying to take over the school board? That's what I want to know. Should we have Jen up next?
Those were great presentations today. So I think, I don't know, do we start with the motion, or do you want to?
I think, yeah, why don't you go ahead and make the motion? We had a bit of a discussion about it at the last meeting. But I think, why don't you go ahead and make the motion, because then what we can discuss is the motion, and I think that'll help focus the conversation.
Okay, and Libby, I'm going to ask you to correct me if you hear anything wrong with the motion, but I think the motion would be to assign $1.5 million from the fund balance to the capital fund.
Okay, is there a second?
I will second that.
All right, great. So discussion.
So I want to answer any questions. We presented the high level last time and heard some feedback from folks here and came back to the operations committee and talked about it a little bit more. I think we still continue to believe that it's a good idea for a few reasons. It is not something that we can't change going forward, so we're not taking anything that can't be undone. But mostly it gives Tom an opportunity to have a scope of effort when he plans his facilities needs going forward. I was really struck by the sheet that has our capital plan, and it really just solves to the $270,000 or $300,000 that we put in each year. So for scale, Tom went and got a refreshed estimate to what would windows cost for all of UES and Main Street Middle School. And he just got the cost of the windows, which is probably about half the total cost, but just the cost of the windows is over $1.1 million for both of those schools. It's about $650 at Union and about $490 at Main Street, just windows. And our capital plan is funding $135,000 at each, right? Mm-hmm. So I think the operations committee generally felt, and folks can correct me or add color to it, that that the scale of funds available in the capital fund were just insufficient. One thing we also felt, we've been focusing on the idea like the windows, but we also really recognize that I don't think any of us should be making decisions about what, like walking around and saying this should go there, that should go here. I mean, I think we have an expert, we have Tom. The more we've gotten to know him in the operations committee, the more I think he's really a gem, and like a really fortunate person to have on our team. So, I'm really excited to see what he comes up with, and so I think it's a good idea. And the last thing I just want to say is it leaves us, starting with the audited fund balance from the end of last year, you know, our target is 2% reserves. If we make this move, we end up with about 4.8%. Based on last year's final balance, you know, you don't know what's gonna happen this year, so things can change over the course of this year. But, so we're still in that 4 to 5% range of reserves. So I'm happy to answer any other questions that folks have, but I think it's a great idea.
One other thing I just want to add, Tim, everything that you said I totally agree with. The additional piece is just a reminder of the timeline, right? So what this would do would give Tom the opportunity to spend the next 4 months, right, thinking about, you know, based on what he believes the needs are, you know, what the right steps would be to address those needs. And then he presents that in, is it October? I can't remember when.
Usually we do it right before budget, so
Yeah.
it's fresh in the board's mind.
Yeah, so we're not suggesting, or there's not a decision to spend the money at this point. It's just merely giving Tom the information that he needs to then put together a plan to present to us. And so, yeah, with some certainty of what resources he would have. And so that's why I really think this is the right step. And it leaves about 4.8% in the fund balance, which is in that range, square in the range of where Christina and Libby said that they would feel comfortable.
Any other thoughts?
I think it makes sense. You know, I think that there's the potential that we may, you know, the district might want to prioritize our own stuff right now, given the future. And this is just that flexibility to do that. Doesn't necessarily mean we're replacing a ton of windows. It's just flexibility, and we're still in a really good position with the fund balance in a really healthy place. So I think it's prudent.
Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none.
Well, is there any, is there a discussion of a timeline for replacement of windows, or is there a possibility of a staged progression that's been discussed in a way, or?
We're not ready to talk about it now, it's just we're just talking about the money right now, and then in the fall, we'll bring something to the board to have that conversation.
Holistically about all of our facilities.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Libby has offered, I think we're gonna take her up as operations committee on a summer field trip to all of the buildings, which I'm actually really excited about, and I would imagine would be open to other board members who are interested.
Yes, please.
Basement of UES is fun.
Apparently, yeah, we've been told that.
I wanna go.
I told him, Rhett.
Basement?
Yeah.
Summer basement tour.
It's a big prank whenever you get out.
You're gonna get t-shirts? We're gonna get t-shirts for that?
Hazmat suits.
Or that.
That's gonna
yeah.
be something you're definitely gonna wanna come back for, right?
Yeah. All right, any other discussion about the motion on the table? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you very much, Operations Committee, and Libby and Tom for your work on that.
And Christina.
And Christina, yes, thanks for the reminder. Just saying hi to Debbie, who's joining us in a bit, well, joining us now, but we will, specifically for our executive session. We've just got one more thing, and then we'll be making a move to head into executive session. Debbie's going to be assisting us, as she has been, with the superintendent evaluation. Okay, moving on to policy monitoring. It's policy number F3, the fire and emergency preparedness. Is there a motion to approve the monitoring report for policy F3?
So moved.
Is there a second? All right, we'll give it to Jim. He hasn't had one of these yet, today. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, great. All right, moving on to the last order of business.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
Is there any news on the discussions about the? No.
Not recently.
The RVS, Roxbury
Sorry.
Village School. This,
Finalization of the sale, is that what you're asking?
right.
There seems to be a discussion happening around whether or not to test for PC. The district is responsible to test for PCBs. Which is what the discussion is right now.
And there is a deadline of the end of June? And if agreement wasn't reached by the end of June, we take it up again in the fall, or who knows?
I think the board would want to talk to the lawyer about, I don't want to give you any legal advice that's not right.
But do we, so that could be part of our retreat, or I don't know how we would do it, you know, and I just keep thinking about like timelines,
Yeah, it could be.
something like that.
It could be.
Just in the event that,
'Cause that'll be right at the end of August.
in the event of worst case scenarios and whatnot.
Amani?
Sorry, quick question, unrelated. Libby, as I am signing off from the board, where can I stay updated on the H454?
Oh, wow. Where can we stay updated?
I would follow Digger with Ethan, or Lola Dufour with VP, with Vermont Public,
Oh, yeah.
or Allison Novak with 7 Days.
Or all three.
Those
Or
are
what?
the 3 top education reporters who know their stuff and are reporting it pretty well right now. And you can always email me for my very educated opinion.
I would like to share Ann Donahue's perspective, who's the Northfield representative, because I think it's just she recently published it out to sort of that side of town, and I want to forward that to the whole board, if that's okay, just as a legislator with a perspective that's thoughtful, and I have no idea whether it agrees with or disagrees, but it's just a thoughtful perspective, I think, that I'd like to share.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mark.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion to move into, I'll read it and then somebody can move it. I move to enter executive session for the purpose of discussing the evaluation of the superintendent under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A3 of Vermont statutes, the evaluation of a public officer or employee.
I'll move.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. All right. So you a fresh Zoom link, because that way Anna and Libby can just close this one. Does that sound all right, Debbie?
So say that again, I didn't catch the first part, Mia.
I'm gonna just start a brand new Zoom and email you that link instead of this one, because otherwise they'd have to send us into a breakout room, and this one they would still have to monitor this one, but we're not coming back to the meeting after executive session, so I would like to let them have the rest of their evening.
Sure,
Okay.
sounds good.
So
Okay.
we're gonna move into another room, and then I'll send you that link.
All right,
Probably
perfect,
recommend
thanks.